Your daughter's talking to you and you're looking at her and you're nodding, you're even smiling, but you can't feel a single thing. You're there, but you're not there. And the scariest part, you know you love her. So why does it feel like you don't? Welcome to the Truth About Alcohol podcast. I'm your host, LeeDavy, and this is a pod for people who know something about their drinking doesn't quite add up, and they want to understand why stopping can feel so much harder than it should. No labels, no judgments, just honest conversations about alcohol and change. So, back to that conversation. It's early evening, and dinner's either just finished or it's about to start. And your kids, they're animated, they're happy, they're loud, they're full of stories, and your partner's asking you all about your day. And you're performing, you're responding, you're doing what a good dad does. But inside, there's nothing. No warmth, no emotional lift, no sense of this is what I've been working hard for all these years. There's just an internal sort of greyness, a dullness. And almost immediately, a thought creeps in. I should feel more like this. And you try to force it. You lean in harder. You ask a few questions, exaggerate your tone slightly. But it all feels a little bit mechanical, a little bit robotic, like you're acting the part of yourself. And that gap between how you think you should feel and how you actually feel, it starts to tighten something in your chest. And here's what makes this moment really dangerous. Not dramatic, not explosive, but dangerous. Because when you feel flat in front of the people you love the most, your mind doesn't interpret it as exhaustion. It interprets it as failure. Good dads don't feel this way. Grateful men don't feel this way. If I loved them properly, I'd lighten up. So guess what? You don't talk about it. You don't say to anybody, I feel empty. You say nothing. You keep going. And somewhere in the background, a quiet solution appears. Alcohol. A drink will take the edge off. Not because you're desperate, not because you're spiraling, but because you want to feel something. Or at least not feel guilty for feeling nothing. And this is subtle. It doesn't look like a problem. It just looks like a man unwinding after work. But the wiring underneath is deeper than that. And think about it. All day long, you've been in output mode. Making decisions, holding tension, managing other people's expectations, suppressing irritation, containing pressure. And your nervous system has been in controlled activation probably for 8 to 12 hours. And when controlled activation stops, it doesn't automatically land you in a place of connection with other human beings. It often lands in depletion. Think about this, right? We assume that when effort ends, joy automatically begins. But biologically, when sustained effort ends, do you know what comes next? Collapse. Flatness isn't indifference, it's a system that's run out of bandwidth. But because you don't have language for bandwidth in emotional life, you translate that flatness into a character judgment about yourself. And shame is far heavier than tiredness. And now the body wants relief from that shame. And alcohol is really good at that. It blurs comparison, it softens self-criticism, and it injects artificial warmth. And suddenly, the world feels a little bit rounder, a little bit happier, right? Your kids suddenly seem really funny. Your partner, she's really easy to listen to. Suddenly, you feel more like yourself. But here's the part that most people skip over. It wasn't the alcohol that created the love. Alcohol just masked the depletion. And if you mask depletion rather than addressing transition, the pattern will repeat tomorrow and the day after and the day after and the day after. Now let's just slow down for a moment. If you've been listening to me talk about this emotional flatness and you felt the shame come up as I've been talking about that, just notice what happens in your body. Is there tension in your jaw? Tightness in your gut? Heaviness behind your eyes? Do you feel numb, angry, upset? Nothing to solve, just recognize it. Because this moment will come back. The only difference is whether you're going to meet it with shame or with understanding. And there's something else happening here. You're switching identities. At work, you're competent, defined, clear in your role. At home, you're relational. You have to be emotionally available. You have to be responsive. And these are two very different nervous system states. And most men have never been taught how to transition between the two of them. We just literally expect ourselves to show up at the door and flip a switch. But without a deliberate shift, the old state, the state that you've been sitting in work, will often bleed into the new environment, your home. So you walk into intimacy and you're still wired for performance. And intimacy feels like a lot of effort. And when intimacy feels like a lot of effort, connection shuts down. And it isn't because you don't care about your family. It's because your system is still in this protective state. And then alcohol becomes the shortcut between those states. It says, here, I'll handle the shift. And it does, temporarily. But the long-term cost is your nervous system never learns to downshift on its own. And you become dependent on alcohol, not for pleasure, but for the transition. And that is a very different problem. Now let's address the hardest part here, the guilt. The moment when your child is excited and you're blank, that moment doesn't just hurt, it scares the hell out of you because it threatens your identity, because you think inside that you're supposed to be much better than this. And you don't understand what's happening physiologically. So you make it a moral judgment. You think, I'm becoming distant, I'm not present, I'm failing. And that narrative creates even more internal pressure, even more guilt, even more shame. Okay? And this then creates even more desire for relief, which then strengthens the loop, which is why this episode matters. Not because you need to try harder, but because understanding interrupts the shame. And shame is often what is driving the drink. Now, if this moment feels familiar, if you know what it's like to sit at the dinner table and feel internally switched off, there is something designed specifically for this transition, and it's called the AfterWorkReset. You don't need willpower. You don't need to stop drinking when you're doing it. It's just about building a deliberate downshift before you enter family space, usually entering the family home. It's a 10 to 15 minute thing that allows your nervous system to land. So when you sit at a table, you're not performing connection, you're actually available. So check it out at www.thestrivemethod.com, okay? Emotional numbness doesn't mean you don't care. It means your body never got the chance to arrive. And that is the truth about alcohol. Much love. Strive on. Until tomorrow, you've got this.